What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the UFC card for this Saturday, and we're going to be talking about it from a DFS perspective. And for those that followed last week, it was one of the wildest DFS slates in recent memory, in that it was really it was really tough to make money if you played well. That's the best way I could describe it. Of the experts who play 150 max into these big tournaments, a grand total of one of them made money this past week. There was just all kinds of variants that just kind of hit the wrong way. Muslim Salikov with the first round quick win bonus. That wasn't on too many people's bingo card, among other things. And it was very, very difficult. So that's just the way it is. It's a very, very high variance sport. And for those of you that watch my betting breakdowns, you've heard me talk about this quite a bit. For a sport which is extremely high variance, it's also a sport that people get very confident with their takes. That people are very, very sure that if A happens, B will win, or if B happens, A will win, or whatever. And it's just not that simple when you have two very aggressive human beings in the ring or in the octagon just going crazy on each other. And listen, you could talk about game planning and styles and things like that, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's a quite a bit of variance in this sport. So, with that said, we're going to get on to this week, and we have a 12 fight card. And again, to analyze a card from a GPP perspective, we first like to look at how many fights there are. And usually 12 fights is just kind of okay. And when I say just okay, I just mean that it's a card where you could probably come up with the best plays, but it's going to be very difficult to get particularly unique to win a ton of money in the big GPPs. The other kind of variable is what the main event looks like, because the main event is always the fight that projects the best. And if it projects too well, then it's going to be extraordinarily tough to fade and incredibly popular, which is a bad combination for GPPs. So this particular main event, I think, is not 100% mandatory to play. I mean, it certainly would be a nice idea to play one of these two, but I don't think it's a stone lock. So between the 12 fight card and the, I guess, good main event, but not outstanding main event, I think it's a relatively decent GPP card. The other thing you have to look at is if there are any key fights that you're going to want to target and general upside, and we'll get to that as we get to it. The other thing I will say is that I am going to be doing a lineup build video tomorrow. And again, I've been out in the Hamptons pretty much last month with respect to my ability to do this type of content. So I apologize for being a little bit lax as far as that goes, but hopefully we'll be able to pick that up again. All right. But for this video, we're going to go over who the best plays are. We'll talk a little bit about ownership, but it's basically going to be very, I don't want to say vanilla, but it's going to be very, very, I don't know, theoretical. All right, first fight on the card, Pierre Rodriguez versus Ketlin Souza. It's a female fight with not a ton of upside. We'll take a look at the inside the distance lines just for kicks, but I can't imagine either of these ladies is going to be better than mine, plus 300 inside the distance. And let's take a look at it. Yeah, I mean, they're both plus 400. And in the absence of an extreme amount of takedown upside, it requires you to fade this fight. However, I will say that Pierre Rodriguez does have takedown upside in this fight if she decides to really go for it. So we're gonna put her on our list of fighters to at least include in our main pool, whatever that means to you. So I will put Pierre Rodriguez in here. But as far as like top plays, she's definitely not one of them. But she definitely has the most takedown upside of this fight, so we're gonna throw her in there. All right. Speaking of which, Rafael Estevan versus Philippe Bunez. So you're not going to see a huge inside the distance line for Esteban, even though he's minus 555. You'll see. Let's look at this. Yeah, I mean inside the distance like plus 170, which isn't that great for this price. The thing is that he's got quite a bit of takedown upside. So that does in fact make up for that. Um, so I consider him an extraordinarily good play. And one of the issues here is that Philippe Bunez is probably a pretty good submission grappler off his back. So that's good in that he's sort of live for a random submission, but it's also very conducive to Esteban getting takedowns. Because if Bunez doesn't mind getting taken down, this could end up being, 7 takedowns, 130 points, like one of those. So I feel as though both of these fighters are live here. I would play both Bunez and Esteban. Esteban for the reasons I just mentioned. He's got just a ton of takedown upside. But Bunez again, I mean, his inside the distance line isn't great, like plus 700, but I don't know. It's like I think Esteban's going to be very, very popular, and you're going to get a lot of leverage against him. So I do think that Bunez should be used. Should you use him as like a top underdog in your 20 max and below? No, but he's certainly going to make it into your pool. So I think that again for now, let's put Esteban in here. He's 9,500, which makes him kind of tough, but that all those takedowns plus this kind of style matchup that will make those takedowns likely, it's kind of hard to ignore. Okay, we have Austin Bachi against Giannis. This is an added fight, and you got to respect UFC for doing this to give us a kind of a full card to play with. And again, they don't care one bit about DFS, but it is nice to be able to get that 11th, 12th fight in there. So we do have a minus 700 favorite, and we don't even have an inside the distance line here, but from what I've heard about Austin Batchy, you get like a whole bunch of submissions. So yeah, here we go. Submission, submission, submission. So you're going to get a lot of takedown upside, and you're probably going to get it inside the distance line of minus 110 also. So he's going to be an elite play. But again, we have to really consider these prices here. Like on both these guys, both Estevan and Bashi, it's kind of tough to get to $9,500, $9,600 fighters in general, unless you can really hit one of these big, Muslim Salikov underdogs or whatever. So as we go through the rest of the card, there is one underdog that I think is going to be very popular, maybe a couple that you can use to get guys like Estevam and Bocce, but you are paying for this, which makes it, this which makes DFS hard. But Bocce with his takedown upside and his win odds makes him a very, very elite play. Giannis, I don't know too much about, but I will say that, you know, he's only, I mean, he's plus six, 700 to win. You know what I mean? So he's only going to win the fight 12% of the time or so. That's not a lot. Let's put it that way. So unless I knew that Bashi was going to be clearly the most popular fighter, where you can get that direct leverage, probably not going to get much, if any, of Giannis. Okay, now as we get to these mid-range fights, this is where you have to respect this a little bit more. Puya versus Nick Klein. Um, this fight has really transitioned into a very, very well talked about fight in the Twitter sphere, so to speak. There's been a lot of, I didn't think people would pay this fight a lot of mind, but Nick Klein put on a nice show in the first round as a huge underdog against Mansoor, whatever his name is. So he's got that kind of buzz as being good in a loss. And that type of thing is usually a pretty easy fade in betting. And we'll get to that maybe when we do a betting breakdown, maybe later today or tomorrow. Probably be tomorrow. But you look at the inside the distance line of both these guys, and they're both really strong. Like Pulyav is plus 130 inside the distance, and even Klein at plus 300 is not terrible. Um, but I mean, Pulyav 8,400, that's a very, very strong play. I have to say. The only thing that's bad is that is he is going to be knockout or bust here because he doesn't have any grappling upside. But I don't know, plus 130 inside, so 45% of the time he finishes or so, 40% of the time he finishes. That's got to be good enough for me at 8,400. So I like him here. I think Klein is a reasonable underdog as well. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Rodolfo Vieira versus Trayshawn Gore. We'll take a look at the inside the distance line of this one. It's sort of a mid-range fight. You have Vieira. Is he plus going to be another plus 140? A pretty good one. Let's see. Yeah, so Vieira is like almost minus 110 inside the distance. And that, at his price, is very, very strong. Again, what we're looking for these guys around 9K is minus 110 or better to be sort of an elite play. And he is only 8,900 and getting that minus 110. So that's extraordinarily good. Honestly, that both Vieira and Pulayev are very, very good mid-range plays. We're going to get to more later, but I think these are the ways you're supposed to start your 20 max and below type lineups. When it comes to playing, 150 max or whatever, you got to get a little more funky. But these are very nice conservative type plays. I almost would rather you play these guys than the real expensive ones. They're just so affordable. And as you can see, this Pierre Rodriguez play is slowly but surely losing steam as we're getting to these other fighters that just look a lot better. Now, of course, that's going to mean that Rodriguez is going to be much lower owned, and we'll talk about that when we get into lineup construction in another video. But Puliayev and Vieira, both very, very strong. I think Gore and Klein are very similar as far as underdogs go, so they'll be in my pool. But for 20 max, I don't think you're going to even need to get to them. So, and we'll get to that in a little later. Pulayev against Vieira. I don't know which one's better. I think Vieira's got to be a little better because he has takedown upside. But you're paying 500 extra. So these two are pretty good starts. All right, so now we have another kind of Twitter holy war here with Rinya Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. First, let's forget about all the narratives for a minute and take a look at just the raw numbers. You have Nakamura inside the distance. Let's start with that at only plus 240, which for his price is extraordinarily poor. The thing is that the big 20 million dollar question is he going to wrestle? Okay. He came in to the UFC with some incredible, credentials as far as being a world-class wrestler, competing in world-class wrestling. And then his first fight, he didn't have to show it. He got two knockdowns and destroyed somebody. And then his next two fights after that, he really flexed his wrestling, getting four takedowns, three takedowns. And then his last fight, for some reason, he just couldn't get takedowns, just couldn't, and put on an extraordinarily miserable performance on the feet. So the question is, number one, is what's he going to do here? If he does decide to keep this on the feet for some reason, there's just I find it very difficult to believe that he's going to be a good price at 9,300. But if he does go for wrestling and gets a bunch of takedowns, I think people are presuming that he's going to just roll over Fletcher and destroy him. But I'll just share a couple of thoughts with you. Like in his two fights where he did wrestle, he didn't even score. He didn't combine all these takedowns with a lot of ground and pounder strikes. So even these two fights here were pretty bad. So I'm not interested in this. Like all those the combination of effects here that make him a bad play, I think are too strong to overlook. So I'm gonna be off of him in 20 max or below. I wish I had it in me to take Pletcher, but he just his win odds are just so small. Um, I don't know. If he grinds out a win at 6,900, am I going to be? Am I always going to be in the optimal? Maybe. Because I think Nakamura is going to take a lot of money. I really do. Because it's just so obvious that he's going to wrestle, and people love to play this. But all wrestlers were not created equal. This is a wrestler that has not really put up a lot of ground strikes. So I don't know. I'm inclined to just say fade the whole fight, and that's going to be probably a pretty hot take here because I think people are going to want to play Nakamura, but I'm not. I'm really not interested in that. I guess if anything, oh my God, am I really going to play Fletcher? Come off this miserable performance against Loughran? I doubt it. I think I'll end up just fading it, just hoping Nakamura doesn't score. I guess that's the idea. Okay, moving on up the card, as they like to say. Kevin Vallejos versus Danny Silva. I presume this is going to be a pretty healthy inside the distance line here, but let's take a look. Vallejos inside. Let's see. I mean, minus 120. Yeah. I mean, sure. Um, fine. It's no better than Vieira though. And Vieira's got takedown upside. Um, so let's take a look. Does Vallejo's have takedown upside? Let me just see something. Oh, it's not even launching his his log for me right now. But no, he doesn't. I mean, like he's gonna, he's obviously a much better striker, and he's likely gonna get a KO here, but not, I mean, not more than 50% of the time. So in 9,400, yeah, I mean, I think he's okay, but I don't think he's as good as Vieira, and honestly, I don't even think he's quite even as good as Pulayev. So I don't know. Again, I'm probably going to be a little too greedy with my pricing in this on this card, but uh, I'll say Vallejo's better than is he better than Nakamura? I guess he has to be. Probably worse than Estevan, and probably a little worse than Bashi because of the takedown upside. Yes, I would say of these top guys, I would say probably Bashi first, then Estevan, then Vallejos, and that's in order of obviously in pricing, but that's the way it is. And I have no real reason to play Silva here. There's just going to be better, I think, better things to do. We'll get there. Aleski dos Santos, Zaleski dos Santos versus Neil Magny. I can't imagine that this is going to look good from a DFS perspective. I mean, I barely looked at it, but let's just take a look at it now. Yeah, I mean, Zaleski's play plus 200 inside, and he is 8,800. I mean, compared to these other guys that we've already mentioned, it's pretty miserable play. Also, considering that Magny just loves to drag you into the swamp, so to speak. Um, I just can't imagine Dos Santos puts on such an amazing performance to score well. And Magny again, I mean, he's fine, but you know, if he wins at 7,400, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be in the swamp. It's going to be a hard fought decision. Probably not going to score all that great. And DeSantis is not going to be particularly popular. So I don't think this fight is particularly interesting. Carol Hosa versus Nora Cornole. Nora Cornole is probably going to be a popular underdog here just because she's done well recently and she's 7,600. Let's take a look at the inside the distance lines first for both of these ladies. Rosa inside plus like a million, Cornole plus a million. I mean, no one's finishing this fight. You can't play Carol Hosa, I think, in any format. Nor Cornole, I mean, you might be able to do this, but I don't know. I mean, she did get a sub at her last fight, but it wasn't even because she got a takedown. She took down Cavalcante, but ended up losing. Cavalcante is good, by the way. Yeah, I guess the fight's just a pass. I mean, if anything, I'll take Cornole just for the money line value, I guess. Just because she wins the fight a decent amount of the time. Um, she's like only plus 150 and she's 7,600. I guess that's reasonable. She's probably going to show up in kind of like cashy type builds, right? Because you don't really need to have a lot of upside in those types of builds. And 7,600 is at plus 150 is pretty reasonable, I have to say. So I'll throw her in there in 20 max and below. We'll see if we actually need it. All right, what you do need is really the next two fights. Okay. And probably the main event. We'll get there though. But these next two fights you're just going to have to play. Esteban Reebovich against Elvis Brener. I mean, these guys are going to get after it. These guys are going to bang, and I imagine that the winner is going to score a ton. And let's look at the inside the distance line. Reebovich inside minus 110, exactly what you kind of need. It's also going to be a very high paced fight, which helps. And you have Brenner. I literally don't believe this inside the distance line. Not that I don't believe it. I just think it's way low. I mean, he brings it. I mean, Elvis Brenner really brings like a pace here. I mean, he has a third round KO. He had a first round KO. I mean, this was a total war against Orobai. I mean, he has takedown upside. This guy never stops. I mean, I think this fight is the one you have to play. I mean, really. And I think that Brener is almost a mandatory underdog. I mean, I don't understand this. I really don't quite get the inside the distance line. So I guess I probably shouldn't be giving my opinion on that, but I mean, I think he's an extraordinary good play. I think if he wins, he scores a ton. I think Reebovich was good enough that people are going to play him, so you're going to get leverage. I think this is one of the key fights you have to play here. I think Brener or Reebovich on the excuse me, Reebovich or Brener on the other side. I think Brener is infinitely better than any of the punts that we discussed already. And then this other one, I mean, this fight is going to deliver also, I think. I mean, you have Mateus Rebecki against Chris Duncan, and Rebecki just comes right after it with the freaking pace, you know? I mean, we'll take a look at the inside the distance line, but I mean, without even looking, I know even if the inside the distance line isn't even minus 110, you know you're going to get takedown upside. You know you're going to get volume upside. We'll take a look at what these up numbers are. Rebecca inside, there it is, minus 110. That's good enough anyway. And the volume and the takedown upside. And then you have Duncan on the other side who's plus 320 inside. And you have this very real variation where Rebecki or Rebuski or Rombeski, whoever you want to pronounce it, goes after it. Duncan survives and takes over late and gets a pretty decent third round finish or even a good volume based decision at the end of the day. I don't know. I think that both of these fighters are, I mean, I think you have to play this one too, which all this is kind of cool for DFS because, you play, you're kind of like nice and overweighted these later fights. If things are kind of going your way, you could use the betting market to kind of hedge depending on what you want to do. So I think that like one, two, three, four, in these last two, second to last fight and third to last fight, extraordinarily good plays. So between those and who else do we talk about? Mostly favorites, but pull out Pulayev, Vieira, mid-range guys. Then you can go up to hey, listen, if you can get to Bashi by playing, say, Brener, right? And you could certainly do that, right? You played Brener, you get lucky with him, and then you get one of these. Now you're getting somewhere, right? And then you have this main event, which it's like I said, it's not 100% mandatory you play, but I think it's pretty pretty likely you're going to play. I mean, Tiara, very very strong. He can get some takedowns. He can get control time. He can get some knockouts. There's a lot of things he can do, and he's got 5 rounds to do it. So 9100 is very very strong. Um, Hyung Sung Park. I mean, he's plus 300 to win. And I mean, if he wins at his price, I mean, he's probably going to be optimal. No? I mean, you're going to get what? You're going to get leverage against a very popular favorite, and Tiara will be popular. Tyra will be popular, and you'll have 5 rounds to rack up points. So I think that Young Sung Park, despite being on short notice here, I mean, he's still getting, pretty decent money line odds here. I mean, he's not being completely ignored. So uh, I like both sides of this. So it's kind of a weird kind of card where you can really, if you wanted to, just kind of screw around down here and make sure you just completely backload these last 3 fights, and you'll always have a sweat. You know what I mean? Like, not you'll always have a sweat, but at least you'll know going into these last 3 fights exactly what you're rooting for. And again, I think it's kind of value added to be able to use the betting markets to hedge if things are really going your way in the DFS streets. So I guess that's pretty much all that I have. I am going to do a full lineup construction video in the next day or two where we're going to use Saber Sim to actually sim this stuff out and build kind of good high non-dupe type lineups. And I'm hopefully going to do a betting breakdown as well tomorrow. I do have a little bit of time before I have to do something else. And I guess that's it. Shout out to TrueDFS, to SaberSim, to everybody who helps me create this content. And that's it. Good luck.